Hello everyone, this is Lexicon Architect, and for today's commander, we're going to be looking at Captain Storm. A 2 mana is a creature that says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a 1/1 counter on target pirate you control. So basically, the general strategy of this deck is to generate a lot of treasure tokens and pump up our pirates. So at main value 1, we're going to talk about Impulsive Pilfer, a 1 mana 1/1 that says when it dies, you create a treasure token. Then it has Encore for 4. You exile this card from your graveyard, and for each opponent, you create a token copy that's attacking that opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste, and then you sacrifice them at the beginning of your next end step, and you can only activate this as a sorcery. So let's say hypothetically we get it out turn 1, it dies, we make a treasure, and then when we have 4 mana, we can exile it, and then we're going to make copies of this, and whether or not they're blocked or not, they're going to be sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step. So we're going to generate treasure tokens when those tokens leave the battlefield. Then we're going to talk about Sticky Fingers. You can enchant your creature with this, and then that creature has Menace, and then whenever it deals combat damage, you create a treasure, and then when enchanted creature dies, you get to draw a card. At mana value 2, we're going to look at Captain Vargas Wrath that says when it attacks, pirates you control get +1/+1 till the end of the turn for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Next, let's talk about Dragonspark Reactor. Um, when it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter. You put a charge counter on it. Sorry, and then for 4 mana, you can sacrifice it, and it deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target player, and that much damage up to one target creature. Also, we have Collector's Vault, a new card that says tap 2, tap it, draw a card, then discard a card, and you create a treasure token. So this generates insane value for us, allowing to pitch away cards we really don't need. We get to draw a card out of it, and we also get to create a treasure token, which is then going to trigger our commander. Next, let's talk about Reckless Fireweaver. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So we're generating treasures, and we're going to be pinging them with this creature as long as it stays on the battlefield. At mana value 3, we're going to be looking at Academy Manufactor. It says if you create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each. So we're going to get life gain out of this. We're going to get card draw, and it's going to trigger our commander an additional 2 times. So like I said, let's say you make the treasure, you make a clue and a food, and then you're going to get 2 counters from your commander. Next, let's look at Breaches. The 3 mana first striker that says whenever a pirate control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You can create a treasure, target creature can't block, and you get to exile the top card of your library, and you may play it this turn. Next, let's talk about Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator. It's a 3 mana flyer that says whenever one or more pirates you control deal combat damage to your opponent, um, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. Next, we're going to talk about Icon of Ancestry. When it ETBs, we're going to choose Pirates, chosen type, get +1/+1, and then we can tap 3 and tap this. We look at the top 3 cards of our library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Next, let's talk about Midnight Clock. Midnight Clock allows us to, it's a mana rock for us, and for 3 mana, we could put an hour counter on it, and then at the beginning of each upkeep, you put an hour counter on Midnight Clock, and then once it hits the 12th counter, you shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, and then you draw 7 cards, and then you exile this. Next, we're going to talk about Professional Facebreaker. It's a 3 mana menace that says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token, and then you can sacrifice a treasure to exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Then we're going to be playing Zorn, basically because it's going to give us an additional treasure whenever we make a treasure. At mana value 4, we're going to be playing Big Score to discard a card, draw 2, create 2 treasures. Then we play Chain Reaction as a mass removal for 4, so it's going to deal X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. Then we play stuff like Distant Melody to help us draw cards. Uh, Reconnaissance Mission allows us to draw cards whenever we deal combat damage to a player. Then we have the Belligerent, a 4-mana vehicle that says when it attacks, you create a treasure. Until your next turn, you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play lands and cast spells from the top of our library, and you can crew it for 3. And then we have another card like Big Score and Unexpected Windfall. At mana value 5, we are playing Thoughtcast, Infinity for Artifacts, so this is going to most likely cost us just 1 blue mana to play, and we get to draw 2 cards. Then we play Spell Swindle, a 5-mana counterspell, and we create X treasure tokens, where X is the spell's mana value that we countered. And then for another mass removal, we play Blasphemous Act. So the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and it's going to deal 13 damage to each creature. As far as our land base goes, as far as utility lands, we have Hidden Volcano, a new card that we can pay 5 to sacrifice it. We get to discover 4, and we can only activate this as a sorcery. Then we play Inventor's Fair, because if we control 3 or more artifacts at the beginning of our upkeep, we gain 1 life. Then we can pay 4 to sack this and look, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. You can only activate this ability if you control 3 or more artifacts. Then we have Restless Spire. For 2 mana, we can animate this land, make a 2/1 blue and red elemental creature token that says as long as your turn, this creature has first strike, and then it's still a land, and then whenever it attacks, you get to scry 1. And then lastly, we have Minds of Moria. For 4 mana, we can exile 3 cards from a graveyard, and then we can create 2 treasure tokens. And that's the deck in a nutshell. It is among one of the cheaper decks I built, coming in at $125. So if you like this deck tech, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It will help me out tremendously as a content creator, and I hope you have a good night.